Hi there, welcome to the Schwowin's Nest. My name is Sandra, and I'm so glad you're here. I grabbed a couple of these milk jugs from the thrift store for $3.99 a piece. I'm going to be making over the one on the left. The first thing I did was take them out to my garage and give them a couple of coats of spray paint. Then I gave them a couple of coats of white chalk paint, and now I have the perfect canvas to create something fun. I'm using my favorite way to transfer images, and that is printing off on tissue paper. Right now, I'm just applying a thin layer of Mod Podge all where I think the label is going to go, and then I'll just apply the label. I like to pick up my image with my paintbrush, as you saw me do there. It just makes it easier to hang on to a project so you can see it, and I'll be able to just place it where I need it to be. I'll use my fingers to smooth it out originally, and then I'll go over it with a brush that's always got some Mod Podge on it and smooth it out and get out any wrinkles. If you want a full tutorial on how I print on tissue paper, that is linked down in my description box. This will be available as a free printable on my website. I created this last year sometime and I've used it a couple of times on different projects. So you may have to scroll down towards the bottom to find it, but I believe it is titled Farm Fresh Milk. So you can just go ahead and type that into the search button on my website and you'll be able to find it. Normally, I would create a permanent floral fixture inside these canisters, but I thought it would be fun to create some summer bouquets that you could easily switch out for the seasons. So if you purchased one of these canisters or you made a canister like this, you may not want to have a permanent floral arrangement in there. The first thing I did was grab these beautiful soft blush pink solo wood flowers that I had in my stash, and I was trying to think of a way to use these pink ones because they're so pretty, and I thought this would be perfect. The next thing I did was take a bamboo skewer and just gently push it into the bottom of the solo wood flower. And now I'm using some of this florist tape from the Dollar Tree. Now, this florist tape is not the best, so if you can find something at a different craft store or maybe something even at a floral shop, what you need to do with this is stretch it, and then it will be easier to glue it upon itself. So you've always got to wrap it so there's a little bit overlapping the one before. And then once you've got it going, you can just spin your skewer and hold on to that tape really tightly, and then it'll just glue onto itself. Sometimes the ends of the tape don't stick properly and you need to use a little bit of a glue stick or some hot glue just to hold them down, but I didn't have any problems with this roll this time. I repeated the process for all of my stems, and I think I have 4 large ones, and then I've got 4 or 5 smaller florals in the same color. I'm going to add some of these greenery picks to each of the stems. And I know these aren't rose leaves, but I'm not a fan of rose leaves. So I decided to grab some of this little frosted boxwood. And I'm going to just use my hot glue gun just to kind of hold it in place so I have an opportunity to wrap it. So I'm just going to put a little bit of hot glue. I'm going to hold it together without burning my fingers, which I did a couple of times in this project. And then I'm going to add another one on the other side, and then I'll wrap it all up with the floral tape. When you're putting the floral tape on these greenery sprigs, I went around it quite a few times just to make sure that they were really secure. And then I continued on just a little ways down the stem, not too far because I ended up coming back up and making sure that it was all really nice and tight. Once the florals were all finished, I just put them in my hand and held them like a beautiful bouquet. I put some of the larger ones on the inside. I staggered the lengths of them so some would be higher than others, and the smaller flowers I put around the outside so that would be more of a border. Here you can see that I'm trying to use some of that floral tape. It did not hold very well at all because of these skewers. They're pretty tough. So then I went and used a piece of twine, wrapped that around a few times, and then tied it off. And then to make this look even nicer, I'm going to be using some nautical rope, and I'm going to start pretty high up on the bouquet and then just wrap it around so it has a beautiful finished look. I tucked the end of the nautical rope sort of down in between the stems and then started wrapping around. Now I'm also going to hot glue that original stem in place because I'm going larger at the top and smaller at the bottom. So I just wanted to make sure that it stayed put. So I'm just going to be using some hot glue and adding that to the very top. Then, to make it really secure, I decided to add a little bit of hot glue every couple of turns on the nautical rope just to make sure it would stay in place. I used a pair of my side cutters just to trim off the rest of the bamboo skewers that I wouldn't need on there anymore. I wanted to add a simple little shoestring bow for anyone who might just want to display this on its own. I think the gingham ribbon there from the Dollar Tree is a little too bright, but this one that I had from Michael's I think will be perfect. This next thrift flip is using the green and orange picture. Look at that. Oh my gosh, it definitely needs a makeover. I don't even know if it would have been in style at any time, but that's just my opinion. Again, just to let you know, it got 2 coats of white spray paint and 2 coats of white chalk paint. And that is the best way that I have found to save on your chalk paint and make sure that the paint is going to stick to your project. Look at the difference on this one right away. I can't believe how beautiful it looks, just even solid white. So this second way of how I'm going to transfer images is to use these rub-on transfers from the Dollar Tree. Now, my Dollar Trees usually don't get that many designs of the rub-on transfers like I see all of you wonderful people in the United States. You get lots more options. This one is one of the fashion rub-on transfer designs, and what I'm doing here is just cutting out the necklace, and that is going to be the very top of my picture here. I thought this would look really pretty in a bathroom, perhaps on a vanity table or in a bedroom, and you could change out the flowers seasonally. So that's my plan for this picture. If you are not familiar with how rub-on transfers work, you simply place the image down onto your object and you hold it very securely with 1 or 2 fingers if it's a larger one. And then you take some type of plastic object. I'm just using this plastic scraper, but you can use a Cricut scraper, you can use a credit card, something that is a little softer and not too sharp. And what you want to do is just keep rubbing until you see that transfer lift away from the plastic. And you can tell that when the plastic becomes a little bit more see-through, meaning you'll be able to see it lift away from the transfer. Just make sure that your transfer is completely down on your project because sometimes these little rub-on transfers leave little edges, so that's why I just tapped it a little bit with my finger. Putting flat transfers on a rounded object can sometimes be a little tricky. So what I like to do is just start at the top, and you can see I'm holding my thumb towards the top of the transfer to hold it down. And then once I have that whole area complete, then I'm going to go ahead and move my thumb down, just pushing on where I need it to be on. You're not going to be able to lay out a flat transfer on a round object all at once. So just be patient and work with it until you get it on there. Now I'm going to take another sheet of the Dollar Tree transfers, the one that has the lettering that you can see there. Sorry for the glare, but it has a bunch of different floral designs on it as well. And these I think are mostly laurel leaves, and that's my favorite thing to work with. So I'm going to be cutting out little bits of these and placing them in between and around and making one big beautiful transfer. So don't be afraid of taking different pieces from these transfers. Just because they are on the page a certain way doesn't mean that that's how you have to use them. So this wouldn't be a farmhouse video if I didn't include some lavender. I'm taking 3 of these lavender picks that I got off of Amazon, and that link is down in my description box because these are my favorite. I love them because they're very realistic looking, but they also have a lot of little nice greenery on them, which really makes a difference when you're using florals. I'm just pulling them apart so they don't look quite so clumped together, and then I'm going to put the center one a little taller and the two side ones a little bit lower down to make a beautiful bouquet. These are some wax flowers that I picked up at the Dollar Tree. And when I saw these, I don't get a lot of good florals at the Dollar Tree. I snatched them up. They are in a beautiful white color, and they also came in this pretty blush pink color. And I have a bunch of them. I haven't used them yet, and I thought these would be the perfect accent to the lavender. I decided to take all of these little wax flowers off of the main stem just because it would make it easier for me to place them where I want them to be in the lavender bouquet. Taking everything into my hand, I'm just going to be placing everything the way I want it to look. Some of these wax flowers around the outside and a couple of them in the center. And because I'm holding it very loosely, I can literally just place these in like I would be picking flowers out of the garden. I did the same thing with this one. I tied it off with some jute twine, and now I'm going to use the same nautical rope and just glue that on and make it look absolutely beautiful. This one, however, got a buffalo check or a gingham black and white ribbon bow. For the last canister that I'm going to do, I will be working with these clear stamps that I picked up at the Dollar Tree. I've also got some other stamps from different stores, and I've also got some rubber stamps from Michael's that I'll use for this project. What I do is I open up the stamps, I take off the protective cover, but I leave them stuck on their backing sheet. That just makes it so much easier to work with, and you don't have to worry about that stickiness coming off and wearing off eventually. With these being dollar store stamps, I want to preserve them for as long as I can. So all I'm going to do is take my scissors and cut the backing sheet, leaving the stamp on it. I like to make sure I have all my supplies at the ready. So I've got my Stays On ink pad, and I did get this from Amazon. And I've also got my stamp cleaning pad, which is the large sort of purpley black thing you see to the left. And I also have my stamp spritz. I find it's always easier to put the ink on the stamp while the stamp is laying down on the counter, but you may have a different way of doing it. And because this is a rounded area, you're not going to get full coverage on this. Sometimes it's going to get a little bit shaky, but you know what? You just have to go with it. I love things that look distressed, so if it's not 100% perfect flower, I'm okay with that. As I'm working here, whenever I'm done with a stamp, I'm going to put it right on the cleaning area of my stamp cleaning pad. So the first circle down at the bottom is where I spritz the cleaner, and then I just rub it on there, and then I dry it at the top. And that just makes sure that the ink comes off every time. For some other inks, you can probably just leave it on and clean it at the end, but I do find this Stays On Pigment ink dries really quickly, and if you let it dry on your stamp, you're not going to be able to get it off, and that might eventually deter from all the details that you get with these stamps. I'm just going to continue stamping until I get the design I want. Now, I ended up going on a bit of an angle. I didn't want it to be just plopped in the center, so I wanted this to have a little bit of a different look. So I'm going to show you that now. I started angling the flowers sort of in the right direction, kind of going up and to the right. And then what I started to do is I really love it when you can see stamps or designs that kind of fall off the page or fall off the edge. So I decided to take some painter's tape and just take a small little piece and put it sort of in the direction of the line. So for this one, it's just up top there. I didn't want this to go any further than that. So I'm just going to go ahead and stamp just part of the flower. And then when I peel off the painter's tape, you're going to get a nice clean line, clean edge, and nothing's going to run over. Then I started using the painter's tape along the sides, and that just allowed me to just go ahead and stamp the full flower, whatever I needed to put on there. And part of it would be on the tape. So when I peeled the tape off, I'm going to get this beautiful, nice, clean edge. And I really love how this one turned out. For the finishing touch on this canister, I decided to put the little hummingbird just on the one side. So I'm inking him up and I'm going to go ahead and place him down. Now, just as an aside, all of these canisters and pitchers got a good coat of Mod Podge to seal them up, but you could also use a spray sealer like Rust-Oleum Clear Matte Finish or any other type of sealer that you have. For this last summer bouquet, I'm using the same skewer sticks that I got. I think these were from Dollarama, but I know Dollar Tree has a whole bunch of them as well. They're usually in the cooking section. I'm just going to cut them down into various sizes. For this bouquet, I decided to use some magnolia blossoms. So I picked these up at Michael's, and I usually get them when they're on sale. So what I'm going to do is just use the skewer and poke those into the bottom of the blossom, and then use a little bit of hot glue to hold it in place. I needed to put something in the styrofoam ball so I could hang on to it. And this is just the end piece of one of the magnolia stems. I'm going to just poke a hole into the styrofoam ball, add a little bit of hot glue, and then push the stem right into it. This will also make it easier for it to stand up in any vase or pitcher or container that you want to use. Now, if I would have to do this project over again, I would have used the same florist tape and taped up those bamboo skewers. I was thinking that I'd be able to fill it in enough that you wouldn't even be able to notice them, but you were still able to see them. So, note to self, make sure you do some camouflage first before you start. I also would have painted the styrofoam ball either green or brown, something just to make it a little less noticeable. I'm arranging the magnolias in sort of a half circle, almost like a dome shape, because that's how I want it to look when it sits in the canister. Sometimes I get lucky at my dollar stores and I was able to find this pretty little feathery sort of greenery and I really love the look of it. So I'm just going to trim these fairly short and push these in between the magnolia blossoms. And because they're so feathery and flighty, you can kind of just push them around and arrange them in such a way so they go in between some of the floral petals. Once I was done with that, I decided to start using some of the nautical rope again, and I'm just going below where the stems started, and I'm just going to hot glue this all around the styrofoam ball, all the way down to the bottom, and then that will camouflage that a little bit better. Now, at the end of all of this, when I was complete, I could still see that white styrofoam ball and the bamboo skewers. So I first started to paint them green, then I didn't like that look. I ended up really struggling, but I took the nautical rope and I finished it on the inside as well. You'll see that on the finished product, but it was a little tricky to do. I think if I had to make this one over again, I would just leave them on long bamboo skewers or some other greenery stems or wire stems and make a bouquet like I did the other two. This one was a little fussy. The ribbon that I added on this one is this large black and white buffalo check, and again, just tied it in a simple shoestring bow. The last thing I did was add a little bit of lamb's ear to the bottom portion of this bouquet just to fill it out a little bit more. I really hope you enjoyed these summer bouquets and farmhouse thrift flips. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. That helps my channel get noticed more on YouTube and helps me grow. As well, do all the things, hit that red subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of my future uploads, and I'll see you in the next one.